Mark, good evening. Happy summer.
Oh, absolutely. My goodness. It's what, 3 out right now?
It's it's 3.
It's 3.
That's not even funny. But here we are, Midwesterners talking about the weather. Thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me
here.
And really enjoy coming.
Yeah, and I know you already, but I don't know all about you. So let's hear about the musical upbringing. Let's hear about maybe some mentors in your life, and we'll start this thing off how it normally starts off.
Absolutely. First off, again, thanks for having me. It's always fun to come to Joliet Central and see this wonderful band historical landmark. I think my story is a little bit different than some others, I guess. I mean, but also maybe similar and kind of basic at its beginning. Started band in 5th grade, like anybody else. Decided to play the clarinet. It was the thing that seemed to be what worked best for me. Made a decent sound on it, and you trust the educator in front of you to say this is the one you should play. So walk out of that instrument pickup night with a clarinet, and out I go. My friend's walking in, he's getting a trumpet, and we're all like high-fiving, and it's going to be the thing. Before that, I feel like I didn't necessarily respect, if you will, my family's musical heritage. And I don't know why I didn't quite get it, that it was a pretty cool heritage. My grandfather was he worked for an advertising agency in Chicago, but I think his real passion was being a polka bandsman. So he was a accordion player, and that was his true passion. Like he would finish his daily job, and then it was a band job, and the weekends would be band jobs, and his group was called the Merry Notes. And they were well known, to my knowledge, in the south suburb area, and he lived in South Holland, and it was just a really cool thing. And I remember seeing them play, but again, just not having that appreciation for it, maybe that I do now, especially going back and watching and listening to some of his old recordings. They were really quite good. My grandmother played piano, so she taught my father piano, and he played flute. So he was a musician in a little bit of his own way. My mother was a music therapist before she had kids. She studied music therapy at Illinois State. So there's a little bit of music, not a band heritage. But there was music. So I ended up falling in love with playing the clarinet, went through middle school band, and in middle school band in the 7th grade, I was asked to play in the symphonic band, which was the 8th grade band. So
Can I stop? Did you and your grandfather ever play together?
He ended up writing a little arrangement for me. Do you remember, and I feel terrible not remembering the name of the tune, but do you remember the clarinet solo that young lady was playing in Mr. Holland's Opus?
Yes. The composer's Michael Kamen. That's what I remember.
Yeah. And he...
Oh, no. It was like a
It was like a Gershwin thing that when she was... That's the one.
That one.
That's the one. And I loved that tune. I loved the clarinet that was there. And so one day my grandfather, when we were at Christmas dinner, I think, he handed me a piece of handwritten sheet music, and he wrote that solo out for me to play. So we never played together on that, but I took it home and I learned it, and then I played it for him later, and he was just, right as rain, thought it was wonderful. So,
well, not a lot of people get that experience where, my grandfather made this arrangement for me. I get to play for him. Do you still have that?
Yeah, it's somewhere in my childhood home, and I actually have been. I think about it often. Actually, it's like where can I find that? So one of these days we're going to go clean out my room and we're going to find that. So
I'm sorry. Go on.
No, it's fine. So finding out that I was able to play in the middle school 8th grade band again just kind of told me a little bit that you might be pretty good at this. So I kind of skipped the 7th grade band altogether and spent 2 years with Ray Forlenza, and he's still a active music conductor in the area. He just did the District 1 junior high band right here at Joliet Central. He conducted the group after he retired from District 140 after, gosh, I don't know how many years. He was there forever. He was my middle school band director. As that would be obvious. So continued on to Andrew High School, and Dan Romano was my teacher. And at some point, I didn't quite know if becoming a band director was for me. I just didn't really think about it. I thought maybe I would like to be a pilot. I don't know. I thought that was really cool. I liked aviation. I thought that was fun. And I had a lot of interest in that. And then I think around my junior year, the Illinois State University band came up, and they did a tour, and they played at our school. And I think Mr. Romano had known that I had an interest at some point. So he hooked me up with Dr. Steve Steele that day, and Dr. Steele, being the kind of go forward kind of guy he is, was, well, why don't you get your clarinet and come on and sit down here with us and play this concert with us? And I said, well, I don't know the music. No, just come on and sit down and play the concert with us. So I said, okay. So I think I played maybe a half a note on that concert. They were playing David Maslenka's Testament, and I mean, notes were flying across the page, but it was a transformative experience sitting next to those people and hearing what a band could really sound like.
And you came from a good high school band too.
Yeah.
Which is not a slam on them at all. It's just, when you get that new type of experience and that next level, it's really something.
Right. And I think an interesting side note there is, the concert band heritage at Andrew, it was good. We played music. We played good music. We played 4 Scottish dances. I don't know necessarily how well we played it, sure. But we did. But I think we did our best with what we had. When I was at Andrew, our band periods were only half a period.
Okay.
So they were like a lunch period class. So even with setup time and all of that, we would be only about 20 minutes or so of music per day and in the band world. So it's hard to really establish a vibe with an ensemble or get things clicking. But I was in the symphonic band all 4 years. I think it was all 4 years, and which was our top band. We only had 2 at the time. So Mr. Romano really provided us some great music. And so really enjoyed that. But I think our heritage was the marching band. That's what really made me fall in love with band, I guess, was because we had a really competitive marching band. And we had, I think that's kind of what Dan Romano at his time at Andrew created culture through, was that competitive marching band. And that's kind of what made that program strong and special. So anyway, that performance that ISU did, not only told me I wanted to be a band director, but it told me I wanted to go to ISU. Amidst all of that time in junior high, I was going down to Illinois State for the junior high band camps. I think I did those all 3 years in junior high. In high school, I went and did the summer symposium. And again, I think back to the beginning of it, I didn't know some of the stuff that I was being provided with as a student. My first conductor for the summer symposium at ISU, he was a freshman going into sophomore year, was Harry Bejan. So, and we were rehearsing throughout the week. We didn't end up performing the piece, but we rehearsed Armenian Dances 1. And I'm just in the third clarinet section thinking this is a really fun band and thinking he's kind of a grumpy old guy. Had no idea, who that person was. And not until much later, of course, did I realize who I had in front of us and what an amazing experience that was. The next year it was John Whitwell. The next year it was Tony Maiello. So it's just like icon after icon that I had a chance to work with over the summer. I think all that sort of started to pile on and create a sense of, well, this is what I'm going to do. I love this. I'm going to these really great things. And it seems to be the thing I do well. So I think this is what I gotta go ahead and go forward with. So
you gotta keep going in.
Yeah, right. So I, as a very not smart high school senior, only applied for one school. Only applied for Illinois State, and fortunately enough, had a high enough ACT score.
100% acceptance rate to everything you applied for.
I did. It was nice, actually. I mean, yeah, I got in everywhere I applied, and then well, where'd you apply? Let's talk about that later. That's fine. So started down at Illinois State, and that's where you and I met, Don. And it was a great experience. I mean, I think the value in that program was that they provided us so many opportunities to play in some great ensembles. Exposed to the music of David Maslenka through Dr. Steele, which was, I think, very important in my development as a musician. I learned how to work hard. I don't think I truly knew how to work hard until I started going through that program. Had a great clarinet teacher in David Gresham, and really felt as if through that time that, in undergrad, you're just kind of learning who you're going to be. And I always felt like maybe was there enough trust or did our faculty or my faculty maybe think I was going to be able to do this. I never quite knew. And I think that's a good thing if you're studying to become an educator, that you should question yourself, and say, am I doing this right? Or am I okay with what I'm trying to do here? Am I even these little clinical lessons, are they going okay? Stuff like that. So It really wasn't until, I had a couple times in and out of the Wind Symphony just through, auditions going not so well or going really well and things like that. And some conversation in Dr. Steele's office that just really was initiated by me. I would go in and ask him, hey, what happened? Why did I not play in the band this semester?
Sure.
And he would just tell you how it was. And I can't tell you how much I appreciated that.
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't happen enough.
I have to send that man an apology letter at some point.
I mean,
I got to reach out to him.
He's actually going to come up and work with some bands in the area here in February, which is going to be really cool. But yeah, I mean, tough love through that development of that relationship. And I just feel like that was a really good thing for me. And I think all of this ties to, like, everything happens for a reason. So, just kind of crazy. Anyway, so, all through that time, got a chance to, I think, quote unquote, prove myself. And then when you get to that time where you're awarded your student teaching placement, you kind of know where you stand. So at the time, was awarded a placement at Lamont High School and Old Quarry Middle School. And then at that point, Terry Redford was teaching at Lamont. He was almost done. And Ken Marks was at Old Quarry. And these are two master educators. And when you get that placement, or someplace like Marian Catholic, or even Andrew High School, in one of those places that there's a good connection from ISU with, it just became a sense of like, oh, wow. Yeah, they believe in me. They think I'm going to be able to go do this. So I really took my student teaching experience seriously and, stayed super late at the high school. Just Terry and I talked quite a bit. And it just started what I think in terms of mentorship or receiving advice from mentors for me was that's something that I need to do. And I think, again, that's an important lesson for people to learn is that there are so many people out there that have been doing this. I mean, more than I have, and in so many ways better, and they've figured out the mistakes. They've figured out the tough ways to get through things, and to learn from those people and to have them help you not make those mistakes was something I feel like I learned right there in student teaching. And I just carried that through into my teaching career and really grasp onto as many people as I possibly can. I feel like it's a skill of mine. Is like, no, I think that person's got the right idea. I have no fear going to talk to that person. let's see how that goes. So and then after I graduated Illinois State, I got a job teaching in Schiller Park, Illinois, District 81, right by O'Hare Airport. Our elementary building, the 4-5 building, was directly in alignment with the international runway, one of the big international runways. I mean, and it's like the school's here, there's the highway, and there's the international runway. So when I would leave some days, I would just look up right from where my car was, and I would see 747s like seemingly 100 feet up in the air. I mean, you could see people almost in the windows. It was insane. The school was soundproof, so you couldn't hear anything inside, and O'Hare actually paid for that. It was kind of cool. So it was a great place to work. It was a very diverse community. Really appreciated the time I had there. But I really felt my calling even before that was to teach high school. That was something I had always wanted to do. So I, throughout that time, was pretty heavily looking into where I could maybe work at a high school, and had a few interviews here and there. Ended up setting up a clarinet tech position, if you will, for the marching band with Lake Park High School. We lived right in Roselle. So I had that set up to happen. And then all of a sudden I'm getting the job at Andrew High School, my alma mater. Mm-hmm. And so things changed very quickly into that world. But I think, if we're, I guess I'd like to go back really quick and kind of mention a few other mentors along the way, and just the way things happen for a reason. While at ISU, I get this random AIM message, instant messenger, right? That just pops up.
Do you have a really cool away message, like a song lyric at that point?
I wasn't cool like that. I was at band practice or downstairs practicing or something like that, or just
to the floor.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And so I get this message from a really good friend of mine now, and by the name of Kurt Gross, and you've probably heard, you know Kurt Gross. A lot of us know Kurt Gross. He's at Warren Township High School, and he was at University of Illinois at the time, and he was in the band at that summer symposium at ISU, playing alto saxophone under Harry Bejan. And if you know Kurt, he likes to get to know people quickly, and he's not afraid to do that. And he actually, I think, took a point to learn who everybody was in that band. And I didn't know that. Somehow he got my contact information. I still haven't asked him how I got this information, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But got my information, and he ends up just kind of chatting it up a little bit, but then asks me out of the blue, hey, do you want to come down to the National Concert Band Festival with me in Indianapolis? I'm going to go, and there's a free college student ticket, so we can just go. And ended up staying with a friend of his down in the University of Indianapolis. And so anyway, I say, strangely enough, I said, sure, let's do it. It sounds like a great idea. And I just, again, felt for some reason that might be a good experience for me. So he comes up to ISU from U of I, and then we drive down to Indianapolis. And so we go to the first concert. Of course, I was blown away. I heard the John Barnes Chant Symphony No. 2, played by the William Mason High School Band. And it was just like hearing what a high school band could actually do was just mind blowing to me. Those are 40-minute concerts at that festival. And so we're finishing the concert. Kurt walks us out of the hall in Clues Memorial Hall and to go congratulate the students, because they walk from the hall and they go into another building for their clinic, and you can kind of, see them as they make that transit. So Kurt made an opportunity to congratulate the band director, and we were kind of shaking the hands of the students and all that stuff. And I just was immediately thinking right at that spot in that foyer that, I'm never going to be able to do this. This is going to be very challenging. And I started to realize that, and kind of lost a little bit of that, I don't want to call it innocence, but that sense of like, oh yeah, I'm going to be good. I'm going to take care of it. I'm going to graduate, and boom, here we go. So that brought me down a few notches, which was a good thing. And so then I'm asking her, okay, so we're going to go get lunch. He's like, no, there's the next concert. And then, okay, cool, we'll listen to the next concert. And then 16 concerts later, we've listened to about 15 hours of band. And for me at that point, that was almost too much. And I was like, oh my goodness. But at that end, I got to hear what the National Concert Band Festival was all about. And so fast forward to today, we're going to be playing for our second time in 2020 with Andrew High School. And I was in that hall 3 years ago, just standing in the exact spot that I'd shaken the hands of some of those kids. And I was walking my own students across to go to their clinic. And it was just a very surreal experience. And I remembered it very vividly. So I owe Kurt a lot, just in that sense that he just brought me down there. And here we are, that it actually happened for us. So, yeah.
Let me ask you something that, spoiler to everybody listening, it's not always just spontaneous. Sometimes I give the questions ahead of time. I didn't give you this question ahead of time. National Concert Band Festival, you thought you couldn't do it, and then you're doing it twice. So how'd you do it?
It's a great question.
And so obviously it's not an overnight thing, and
right.
It's probably a big, long process, but
right.
Let's substitute that just with anything else. Here's something I think I can't do. Here's a goal I have for the kids, a festival, an opportunity, something like that.
Right.
What do you do?
So again, I think it just goes back to the people, the mentors, and the people to talk to, and to humble yourself and realize that you might not be hearing what is actually happening. And so, I'm in Andrew High School. I've got my first year in the gig, and I'm excited to just play the whole first suite with my kids and present that music to them. And I think it sounds great. I think it sounds awesome. And fast forward a couple years, we're playing the Candide suite, and I think it sounds great. We're doing. Man, this is really good. And we go to a festival, and I receive a tape from Jim Keane, and the feedback is less than positive.
Just ruins your weekend.
Yeah. You go home and, but for me it did. And then it was just a sense of, okay, I need to get to work. I need to figure this out. So we had applied for Superstate at some point in there as well, and got some feedback back that was quite similar, in the sense that we really didn't quite have a reason to be doing that yet. So I just kind of got to work on it, and just started to saying, I'm going to listen more critically than I ever have. And I really zoomed in on that as much as I possibly could, almost to a fault, Don. I got to the spot where I was I was no longer pleased with almost anything that I heard. But I was so into trying to create the right sounds and the right articulations. Like it was a cleansing for me. I really decided to do that. And I started talking with, folks to come on out and listen to the band and not be afraid of doing that anymore when I was before. We get the feedback that says you're not doing so well. Well, oh man, I don't want anybody else to come out and
Sure.
But then I just kind of broke it out and said, it is time for someone to come listen, and some trusted people to come listen. I actually think Dr. Steele came up once and helped us out a little bit and gave us some advice. And so,
was that the scariest one? Because my scariest ones were my closest teachers.
Yeah, I would. I mean, that's tough, right? I mean, you're hoping that you're doing right by them, and that maybe you're not yet, and that's okay.
Did you wish you had him out earlier though?
I wish I had maybe anybody out earlier. Yeah, right. Just literally, if I would have known that starting day one, I should, let's get some folks out and let's start making this happen.
Because I think about that even just my first year of teaching. If I even would have had somebody out my first year of teaching, even just the small stuff like, listen, they're not set up right.
Yeah. Right. Like posture, I even as recent as this year, Professor Iwinski from VanderCook, this wonderful new addition.
None of us knew how to breathe until he came over.
Right. And does your band sing? And while we sing a little bit, so you don't, and so just telling you how it is. And again, there's so much in that. And if you can take that for what it is and not be personally offended by it, it's then move on. So, but I think what it is when you're trying to get, at least for us, when you're trying to get to that next level, I think it took the right combination of kids, the right group, and actually the right music, and then the right event to happen for them to start feeling like, okay, this is important. Now, all through this time, Don, our marching band was still doing fine. Yeah. It was actually doing quite well, and we were still making things happen there, and the marching band sounded good. We were starting to make the shift of, wait a minute, what we're saying inside in the concert room needs to translate outside, and we need to start marrying these two together to be one concept. And actually, let's place more importance on the inside group to create those better sounds to happen outside. When that started to happen, then again, everything gets easier. Teaching the marching band at Andrew has never been easier than it is today because of all this. So in 2014, maybe it was 15 in the spring, we were working on Give Us This Day, and it was my second time doing the piece. And Andrew, I did it my first year, and my friend Matt Doherty was looking at me with like, kind of a sideward glance, like why were you doing that in your first year? That actually sounded okay in the first year. But this group really started to sound good. And we go to the Lamont Midwest Music Festival, and we're going on near the end, so we just stay around for awards, and we think we played well. Yeah. And then it's one of the last competitive concert band things, and I'm really not all about the competitive concert band thing, but it's a nice hall at Lamont, and it's a right time of year to go ahead and play some of that music, so we like going. And again, I had a big connection with Lamont High School with my student teaching placement, so I like to go back. End of the day, we're at awards, and they're calling off third and second, and then there's a couple of best woodwind awards, and we got a best woodwind award, and then we got a best percussion award, and then we're thinking, wait, they just called third and second, and we just got 2 awards, and then they call a grand champion, and we had won the festival for the first time in Andrew history. And this festival's been going on for 30-40 years, so the trophy is a big gigantic thing that travels around, and you're looking at schools on there, Plainfield Central, you're seeing Lockport's on there, Wheaton Warrenville South, I mean, just places that had been so good for so long, and some of those bands were there that day, that we ended up playing that well enough to come home with that grand champion thing. And I remember sitting there with a student of mine that is just one of my very favorite people today, and she's just finishing up her time at U of I as a drum major of the U of I marching band, and just her turning and looking at me with this like, wonderment that had just happened for us. And we even had a few kids go home with their parents. They didn't stay for awards, so we had a good contingent to the group there to see that happen for us. And then at that point, I was starting to talk with Joe Manfredo a little bit. He was at ISU at that time, which was really nice to hear that he was at my alma mater, and he was at U of I before, but he's coming to my alma mater. So I heard about how good he was. So I talked with him, and he came out, and it was right around that time to prepare for that performance that he also just kind of looked me square in the eye and said, "Mark, this is really good, and you need to put this in for Superstate." And it really wasn't even on my radar, not even on my radar. So then he talked me through that process since he had done that before, and so we sent in, and sure enough, for the first time ever, we made it. And since then, it has been a new world of concert band at Andrew. So and it's had its ups and downs in there too, but it's just been now I think we get it. Okay. So it's been pretty cool.
Very good. Yeah. I'm thinking about, I think my first memory with you, if I remember right, it was in the auditorium at ISU, and you were bootlegging a concert or something on a mini disc player. And it's funny because I think about, every band kid that goes to be a band director, like, you think you're really into band, right? And I thought I was really into band. And you are probably the first person that I met that I remember going back to my dorm going, that guy really likes band. And I remember talking to you, and it was always cool because you were always on the cutting edge of everything, the technology in band. And I know we've joked about this before, and one of my favorite jokes from you is I saw you once, and you said, "Man, I'm really kicking myself buying that HD DVD drive."
It is still in my family room. I still have a library of movies for it. It still works.
It's next to the Betamax.
It is. Yeah, man, an early adopter. I tell you what.
Oh, but I always thought that was cool. Because I remember, again, always talking to you, and you're always very, very excited about these things, and I always learned a lot. And a lot of the times I'd just lie. You'd say, "Hey, have you heard this new piece?" Yeah, it's okay. I even heard the composer before. I just lied. I'd write it down and go listen to it. But it's funny, too, because, like, not just that composer, it's just everything band world. Like, man, you are on top of it. There'll be something like, I'm like, "Man, did you hear this band play?" And you're like, "Well, I was at the rehearsal, of course. I heard." Okay, fine. So how do you keep up on that? What's the drive for that? Have you always been a literature junkie and a tech junkie and everything in between?
Yeah, I think some of it's luck, like being in the right place at the right time to hear something really great.
Sure.
And then and then I'm just the kind of guy that likes to tell people about things.
Yeah.
I'll be driving home and I'll have something just in my mind that just happened. Like even, the ILMEA just had a lending library clear out day. And I made bank there, man. It was great. I got 66 new concert band pieces for Andrew High School
66 arrangements of Hogan's Heroes.
That's it. I mean, they had multiple copies, so I had to make sure I took them all. And so I was driving home, and I was trying to think of everybody I could call just to tell about. There's just be like, "Hey, look, guess what I did?" And so, but no, I think in terms of the tech side of things, I worked throughout high school and through college. I worked at Best Buy.
That's right. That's right.
So, and ironically enough, there was a certain point where I felt like maybe that would be a career path, where it's like, if this music thing doesn't work out, I'm pretty good at this retail.
You did the Apple Store too, right?
Yeah, actually, when I was teaching for my first year, my wife and I both applied for the mall. This is before we had kids. We lived near Woodfield Mall, so Tiffany applied to work at Banana Republic, and I applied to work at the Apple Store. And we both got jobs for the summer. And then we spent all of our money at the mall. But the one nice thing about working at the
you
Apples,
went to Orange Julius or something.
Oh,
instead, right?
man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The Godiva store was next to the Apple store, and they would bring us over the chocolate-covered strawberry leftovers from the day.
And you'd bring them over the leftover iPhones, and everything was equal.
Yeah, it made perfect sense in harmony and balance. So... yeah. So I think that's how I kept up on things, was just, you would just see this technology, and I always thought Apple stuff was great. So then so just going, why not go work there, why not? Right.
Yeah.
So, I still have some of the, the swag from working there, and it was a really cool experience.
In with it on and
yeah, geez.
See what will happen there.
I got an iPhone 3G t-shirt on, we still sell it. So I think that's kind of how I kept up with all that stuff. And ironically, again, through Kurt, he recommended this Sony stereo microphone. And
so let's talk. And here's the next part. And don't take offense to this.
No,
you were the first person I met that I went, oh my gosh, this guy knows a lot about band and band literature. And I know you fairly well. I don't know Kurt that well. I know him well enough to talk. We've talked a few times. Kurt's the next level.
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think, doesn't he have a public Spotify list of his top 800 band pieces or something?
I think the playlist is days long.
I'll have to go look at that.
Yeah. So just get ready, spend a weekend or two listening to it. And he's curated the order in which to listen to. The first track is John Philip Sousa, Stars and Stripes Forever.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool that he put that as the first track to kind of pay homage to that heritage.
The second track, cool. Hogan's Heroes.
I can't get through Stars and Stripes, so I haven't moved on yet. So,
oh gosh.
And then for the music side of thing, I don't know. That's maybe I feel like my ear is attuned to a few things that are new. I like listening to new music.
Did you listen to a lot of band music in high school?
I didn't. I ended up meeting a friend that was a little younger than me. I think he was a freshman when I was a junior, and he was an outstanding trumpet player. And his parents had a strong musical background.
Sure.
And he's actually playing in the United States Marine Band right now. So he graduated from Northwestern, and he's playing in the Marine Band. So sure. He's a serious trumpet player. And we would just hang out, and he would introduce me to some great pieces and recordings and things like that, orchestral music. So then that started tossing me over to listening more to some band music and things like that. Kurt, of course, has just shared a myriad of music with me. And then when Napster was doing its thing,
that was the time too. I mean, did you because I started getting obsessive about it, and it was Napster, but it was also like at that point for Christmas, I always asked for Christmas and my birthday are 5 days apart.
Yeah.
So I would ask for Apple and iTunes gift cards. And all I bought was music.
Yep.
But this was also the point too. Do you have a huge CD collection?
I did, and what I do have is at school, but I think a lot of it was those National Concert Band Festival recordings. Kurt has the whole collection, and he would just share those with me.
Get those, and it was the Mark custom recordings of the U of I Beach years.
Oh yeah.
And I remember for me, I would go to the libraries of our university and check out 10, 20 and just rip them we're just admitting to criminal activity right now.
We are.
But,
yeah.
That I remember for me was a huge time for it. So I imagine for you, just a huge
absolutely.
library.
External hard drives full of music. Yeah. So I wouldn't say a CD collection, but they were CDs, right? And things to listen. Yeah, absolutely. And I did listen a lot through college, and when I hear a piece for the first time, oh man, this is great. And then I think I like to dig deeper.
Sure.
What else did this composer write, or what else is like this, and just go down the rabbit hole.
You still listen a lot today? You listen as much today as you used to?
Yeah, at times. Okay. And I think it'll tie into a little bit later on in the discussion, but I think it's healthy to take a break too.
Okay.
But when it's time to program, and also when we're working on a piece, I do like to listen a lot to different takes on it, different interpretations. And so I'll right now, for instance, we're working on Armenian one. Mm-hmm. I've got a playlist full of original source material on my computer, or my iPhone that's got, all of the original, dance music and songs from the Armenian composers that wrote these pieces. And so it's really, I listen to that actually first before I listen to the band pieces. And then I'll listen to Tokyo Kosei play it, just because Alfred Reed was there so much with that band, and there's a huge Alfred Reed heritage in Japan that I started to learn about. So those are what you might call the quintessential recordings next to the Harry Bejan recording from U of I. And so just listening to, and then I like to listen to high schools play it.
Yeah.
Not just college bands, but what are people that are just like the kids I have in front of me capable of doing. And I think that's that's healthy too. Am I making decisions about how we're gonna interpret some sections from it? On a piece like that, maybe a little bit here and there, but a lot of that stuff comes from Bijan himself. I just kind of read his article, and you and I were talking about that a little bit ago.
You got a hold of that?
I ended up getting a hold of it. Yeah,
I'm glad I couldn't help you. Sorry.
Oh, and what actually was nice about that is, so the article is like about that's not like you have enough on your plate, my friend. The article is about just what Bijan decided to change a little bit, quote unquote, from Reed's writing of the music, and a lot of it had to do with tempi. And for instance, that second movement is marked way slower than it's supposed to go. So, the first 3 notes of the piece are not 32nd notes; they're 16th notes. So it's not digga, it's da-da-dee, So hearing that, and actually kind of knowing that, but not knowing that was how Bijan wanted it. But even remembering all the way back to that summer symposium band, and it's like, wow, that does make sense now that I hear it. So yeah, that's kind of my process, and that's what I'll do. And I'll do that for other pieces too that are on our program. And then, when it's time to stop listening for a little bit and just, take a break and just kind of clean my ears out a little bit, from band, if you will, because I think it's healthy. I'll do that. And then when it's time to get back to pick out some pieces for next year's group, then I'm just going to do a lot of listening and see how things go.
So you say you're working on Armenian dances now. Now, do you work on it as like a big project piece for the year, or is this just a typical concert cycle?
That's a good question, and that's changed a little bit. I believe in the concert cycle system, if at all possible. I know that's not possible everywhere.
I was going to say, can we argue?
Yeah, absolutely. But I get it too. And to some extent, I've backed myself into a wall a little bit when I've done this at Andrew. It's like, well, we're a week away from Superstate, and I decided to change the whole program from when we auditioned, and oh boy, we're cutting it down to the wire here.
But you're looking at it though too from the educational experience and giving the kids more music to look at, and not saying, okay, it's Superstate, but it's not the end all be all. At the end of the day, we're playing a concert on stage.
Correct.
This is the music we have.
Yeah, and for this particular situation, Armenian Dances was a late ad. This is, I think, Don, you talked about, me enough to know that I feel like I programmed pretty quickly, and have a good idea of what my year is going to look like, at least for the top band. This year, I knew I wanted to play Mothership by Mason Bates. I knew I wanted to do that, something different. Just wanted to do something different, and I felt like that would be fun. I think there were some really great opportunities for kids to be creative and come up with their own solos. The piece has 4 opportunities to do some improvised solo work, which is pretty cool. There are a few written out in the piece, but it comes with lead sheets, and the kids can go crazy. We had about 10 auditions, 10 or 12 auditions that were just all really well thought out. I was very proud of the students. So again, that was something different to do. And this is all in preparation for our Music for All concert. And then I wanted to do Granger, and I've had Gumsuckers in the library for a long time. And I've thought that would be fun to do. Way more being unpacked than I originally anticipated with that piece, but it's fun to do. It's extremely challenging, but it's good. And then I just didn't know what the last piece was going to be. Yeah. Like, what was the right fit for this group? Like, where the sections are all decently strong. Every section can play. I wouldn't say we have any at this year. I wouldn't have any just above everybody else sections that I would say, we've got to find a piece for this section, like the horns or something like that. So Armenian Dances has candy for everybody, and opportunities for everybody. And so I think I was just sitting in my office with a few staff members from the marching band, because it was kind of in the end of the marching band season. And we just started talking about Armenian Dances for some reason, and it was just like, that's it. Like, it was just that was the one. That's it. Why didn't I even think about that? Yeah. That's a perfectly legitimate piece to perform, especially at the Music for All event, where I think that festival really does try to land home the need to teach quality literature and to present quality literature.
Do you think so? Do you think we're moving away a little bit from some of those standards that we're starting to forget?
Absolutely.
A little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, but I do think some of the new composers, some of them are really interested in trying to make sure that what they do present is quality.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't necessarily need,
It's hard to find a whole suite on a program now. I think it's hard to find some of the Alfred Reed things on there. I that's at least what I've just been looking at recently is, I get it, push the medium forward, play newer music.
Right. But at the same time, when I played that piece in the summertime of my high school time, I immediately made sure I found a recording of it and then just fell in love. I would listen to it constantly, like how could you not be excited to listen to the end of that piece, and just be like, when those last few bars happen and the horn trill happens and the trombones are going for it. And then you're just like the last three notes, you're just like, yes, every time you listen to it. And it made me fall in love with that piece and band, that was one of the, formative pieces to fall in love with. And yeah, you're right. We're not putting Holst in front of the kids enough anymore. Cause how many kids fall in love with band because of that? I can't tell you how many pieces I performed, of the quote unquote older pieces, right? The Reeds, the Holsts, the War Horses. And the kids are walking out of the band room, and what tunes are they singing? They're not singing the new tunes. Mm-hmm. They're whistling and humming
the stuff with melody. The
stuff with melody, right? Yeah, and the good melodies, right? Stuff that's been really well thought out and has been time tested. And I think that's that's super important to make sure that we keep going.
So as you go on, we don't need to argue. Well,
that's fine. I know what your favorite piece is too. So
what's my favorite piece?
It's Hounds of Spring.
It was.
Oh, okay. It was. Interesting.
I don't know what it is now.
Okay.
I'll have to think. No, I still like Hounds of Spring.
Hounds of Spring.
Yeah, okay, I'm back to it.
It's fine. I'm glad we brought you back to that. Yeah.
It's my favorite part. It's the end. It's the just him putting everything together in that augmented part, and it's just, I don't know. It's a silly. It's not a silly little piece, but I love his program notes. It sounds like kids being goofy at the beginning and very raucous, and it's got a nice little love part to it and everything. All right, I'm gonna go listen.
It makes bands sound good.
The first recording I heard of that, I don't know if it's the best one. It's this Royal Northern College, and I think they play it. Oh my gosh, they play it so fast, and it's really fast.
You've played this recording for me now that I'm hearing you talk about this again.
And it's so fast, but again, like nobody else likes that because it's so fast. I like it because I'm like, I don't know. I watch my 5 kids; they're just running full speed. At home.
So that's pretty good corollary.
There we go.
That's what it is.
Enough about that. Literature. Going on with that. So you're talking about, this literature that you're doing, and I know you've, as I said, I've learned a lot about literature from you, but what are maybe some suggestions you have for some people that, maybe some things that are lesser known, but even if you can think too of like, hey, here's a few things that maybe we just haven't heard for a while, like we've already mentioned, a Holst and Armenian dances or something.
Sure. Well, of course, when you let me know about this question, I had to make a list. So I have a list here, and I'm not going to go through everything, but that's.
I can put it up in the notes too. Afterwards.
That might be cool. Yeah, I'll send them to you. And it was just and these are just literally just like I rapid fire type these thing out. I could have probably gone further, but I decided to stop. So, one of the, we made Superstate again in 2016, and we played a piece called Zing by Scott McAllister. Man, it's just fun. And I'll tie in another quick mentor plug, if you will. David Maccabee, retired from United Township. I met him on a European concert tour. I was serving on the staff for the Illinois Ambassadors of Music tour, and met him through that. And that's a life-changing event in its own right, but a life-changing event in terms of finding a really great friend and mentor. David has been one of my, and I will call him one of my best friends, and one of my biggest supporters in trying to kind of change things around at Andrew a little bit. And he was right there with me the whole time. Yeah. It was fantastic. So he suggested Zing. I listened to it, fell in love with it. It's a fun overture. People look at the score and, oh my goodness, look at those woodwind runs. They're just B flat scales, guys. It's fine. It's all set. So that's a fun piece. The new Omar Thomas Shenandoah is just chillingly beautiful. And it's achievable. It's a grade 3. There's some complex harmony in there, but there's just so much soul in it, and it's just beautiful. And it's really great to hear new composers coming through, especially Omar Thomas coming through. And I can't wait. And maybe if he listens to this, I hope he writes some more things that are, he's got some very high difficulty level, and then he's got this Shenandoah. I can't wait to hear what he comes up with that's going to fill in the high school band rooms a little bit more.
Sure.
Foster's America by David Gillingham, a bunch of Stephen Collins Foster tunes. I just think it's really well written. The second movement is a beautiful dreamer, and it's just gorgeous. Like, that makes the piece. You could probably perform that alone. And it's just very well done. It's a great teaching piece, and it has great music in it. I mentioned Mothership earlier. I heard Charlie Mangini's band at Midwest play a Kansas two-step, an old Arthur Pryor march that had kind of been pulled out of the archives and published in the mid-2010s, if you will. I think it was 2014, 15. Just a fun little circus thing, and not too fast, actually. It's a slower two-step, but little trombone glisses in there and all that stuff. We played another piece at IMEC a couple years ago called True Things, and it's by Nathan Daughtry, a percussionist. This is, again, the rabbit holes I go down. I follow the University of North Texas on Facebook, and they pop up with their live streams. Those are pretty good bands to listen to if you think so. So the symphonic band was playing under Dennis Fisher, and I got a chance to listen to that. And just was listening to the concert, and True Things comes on. It was the premiere of the piece, and I was like, "This is cool. This is great." And I read up about it. It was a little bit of like a love song that he wrote for a percussion duet that was then transcribed for band for Dennis, and so it was just a cool story. And I said that needs to be on the program. Like, that's a new piece. I want people in Illinois to hear that. We played Magnolia Star by Steve Danu, and that was fun. It's about the train that kind of linked the jazz land, if you will, down in Louisiana up to the north to Chicago. So like the Magnolia Star was the name of the train line, and so there's a little bit of a train instance to that piece. Really, anything David Maslenka, I would just say to not be afraid to program it if you're interested. If anybody's thinking about it, find it. And go for it. It's just transcendental music, and it makes you feel like you're doing something bigger than yourself. We were part of 2 commissions last year, and I'll stop here. Wayne O'Quinn's Song for Silent Voices. We joined it on that commission after hearing the piece. And a couple bands from Illinois, Scott Casagrande with Arlington Heights at John Hersey High School is on that commission as well. And it was written with Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and Alex Iwinski. So again, these connections just all keep coming back. Heard his concert at Midwest, and then started talking to him about his performance. And then sure enough, he's at VanderCook, and now there's a friendship being developed. Sorry for the sidetrack. And then we were part of a commission for this piece called Respite, Music for a Gentler Time by David Reeves. And he's our marching band arranger. And a lot of people know David Reeves as a percussionist and a marching band arranger. And he really wanted to get deeper into composing for concert band. And initially this piece was a little bit interesting to listen to, and because it was really like nothing I've heard before. And in the process of working it, I just fell in love with it. And it's hard to describe. It is gentle. It is, it never gets in your face. But it's thoughtful and it's beautiful, and it's really meant for, kind of the hopeful time that when things, in the world of tumultuous times might hopefully calm down is kind of what this is about. So it had a lot of meaning. And it was just a really great piece to work up and prepare without any pretense.
Yeah.
I didn't have an opportunity to look for recordings on that piece and get some ideas. I had to do that myself, and that was a great experience to have too. So there's my short list.
Well, and I'll say this too, sitting with you here. It's fun to hear you talk about these pieces, because I know you've been teaching 13 years or so, yeah. But there's still, you're very excited about the pieces.
Yeah.
And I can see that it's not just like, here's a project we just need to pick apart and turn over note by note.
Right.
This is what I like about these pieces. This was what's exciting, and you're coming from that true point of passion there.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you say that. I guess that's just kind of the only way I know to be.
Sure.
Is just, if I'm going to be in something, let's be in it.
Yeah. But it's not, because the segue to that is that's the exciting part about it. But sometimes I know teaching gets a little stressful. Absolutely. Sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Occasionally.
And if you're a band director, like we as band directors, we're wonderful at PR. Mm-hmm. We're just wonderful at PR and putting the highlight reel out, and nobody ever puts out the stuff of like,
right.
Oh my gosh. Have you had any of those points in your career, that you might want to talk about that were just like, holy cow, this is stressful, and I need to do something about it?
Right. For sure. I guess the more obvious one would be, as I mentioned earlier, where I was teaching middle school and I really felt like I needed to teach high school. Like I wanted to do that. It was, you get a couple interviews here and there, but you're not getting those offers at a high school level. And you're starting to feel like, okay, I'm 3 years in teaching middle school. And now am I being looked at as a middle school band director, and I'm not going to be able to get into a high school gig, even though maybe I might be ready for that. So that was stressful, and that was almost a time where it's like, okay, maybe I'll be a stay-at-home dad. My wife at the time had a really, really good middle school band job in Arlington Heights. I'm sorry, Des Plaines, Algonquin Middle School. Tiffany is a fantastic band director, and I hope someday she's able to go back to doing it. That was a time where I was thinking maybe it's something else. I could do something else. If this isn't going to work out, or just let's start a family and I'll be the dad. I'll stay home and do that. And then in teaching at Andrew for a few years, there was a time where I felt like the balance and the way things just felt may not have felt right for me at that time. And that was about 3-4 years ago.
Did you ever think that would happen at your alma mater?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I getting the job, thinking it was going to be the dream job. And I think that is to some extent, maybe happens to a lot of people that they, that's it. But then after that honeymoon phase wears off, and I feel like the honeymoon phase lasted for a long time. And I guess I can't even say that it wore off, because it was amongst some of the best times we were having at the school in terms of music making. This was right around the time we're playing at the National Festival for the first time, and the students I had in front of me just worked so hard. And I was just so deeply proud of the work they did. I even had Dan Romano come back, and we spent time together. So it was nostalgia and all that going on. But for some reason, there was just something else there, kind of pushing me to feel like, what's going on here? Why amongst all this great stuff do I feel like this might not be for me now? Or this place. And I think it just came back to my family life, and it really helped me to think once again more and more about how important that is over everything else. And so that was me being at school doing Pep Band, jazz band, prepping the Wind Symphony for this big performance, and we were doing night rehearsals for that, marching band that goes into November and things along those lines, just running the program, and me being the only one there doing that was challenging, to say the least, at home, to just feel like I was there for my very young family. We had we were right around 2 kids at that time. So I just thought about it and tried to see what the solution for that would be, and was very fortunate enough in the end to have some very supportive administration to understand that they could work with me and we could work together to try to figure out how my job could be one that's manageable, and while still maintaining and maybe even becoming even more successful, while I could then be there more for my family. So I feel like, with a brain that got so cluttered up with all the things I had to do. And for me, that just felt like it was a lot, where some programs might have, a few other people there doing it. Not to mention just a sense of vision and things like that too, that maybe, I felt like I had a vision that was going on, and maybe I was the only one that felt that. And that wasn't true. I just didn't know that. Mm-hmm. There were so many people on my side. I just didn't know.
And so I was going to say, did your principal or administrator that you talked to about this, were they aware of this prior to you bringing it up?
I don't think so. So okay. in that sense, where was I at in the sense that I thought I couldn't bring that?
Sure. Well, you don't want to complain about every little thing, right? And this isn't a big deal. This isn't a big deal. This isn't a big deal.
Don't want to be a squeaky wheel.
And then time goes on, and all of a sudden things are a big deal.
Takes a toll.
And I, because I'm. And this is not an interview question. This is just you and I talking, because I am like last semester crazy.
Yeah.
nearing burnout, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, and this is what I'm asking you, like, how do you flip the switch then with that? Because same deal, feeling immense guilt about the family at home, and then when you're away from here and you're the only director, and then you're starting to say no to things. Because everyone will say, I don't know if you get this, but they'll say, it's okay to say no. Yeah. Okay, then I'll say no. Well, we'll say no to other people, not me.
Right.
So, I mean, how do you get out of that I guess guilt part there with the band?
Yeah, I think it took a little bit of time. So the acknowledging and understanding that something needed to change was obviously the first step. Yeah. And then deciding how to make that change was the next piece. So so I will freely admit that I'm not a huge fan of doing Pep Band. And I think
get out of here, just leave right now.
I know. All right, we'll wrap this up.
All right.
I think several people who might listen, you might agree. So I decided that was something, you know what, even though there's, a stipend in here for it and we get paid for our time, of course, that time to be home with my family on a Friday night with pizza and watching a movie is far more important than playing Hey Baby for the basketball team. Love our basketball team. Yeah. Love our school. I think there's a huge kind of air of respect and appreciation for everything that everybody does in the building, which is really nice. So it's not that I want to be there for those students. But if there's somebody else that can do that, and take the kids through that, then cool. I also, gave up one of my passions, which I really enjoy doing, the jazz band. I gave that up to be home with my family, and I made sure that I had somebody in there that would still make sure it was right. Yeah. So it wasn't like I'm going to let this go and then, okay, whoever comes in and takes it. Because at the end of the day, this is still the program I'm in charge of. And I want to make sure that the person that's doing that is going to do it at a high level. And it was also then acknowledging that there needs to be a balance in this program too. I needed to get this program feeling more like it was in check in terms of how I thought things should go, or just maybe we need to pull away something here so that this other thing can live. And once that just all felt better, then it was like, okay, I can feel okay not worrying so much at home, like not coming home. So, we have the marching program at Andrew, and then it carries over into the winter with a winter color guard and a pretty competitive winter drumline program, which doesn't really exist all over the place in Illinois. And that was interesting for me to understand, because my view of a band program is, jazz band, concert band, march band in the fall, and then that's it. So when it came down to balancing that out and saying, you know what, we might just not be able to be full powered on jazz. We're going to need to provide this opportunity for the kids, but there's a lot of focus going on in the concert band, and then they're continuing to do a marching activity in the winter. So once we figured that out and balanced it out a little bit, it seemed to feel better. But at the same time, I just had to continually tell myself, when I leave here, I need to leave here. Yeah. And I need to be, I've come to the point as well where I feel like if I'm the last car in the lot, I'm actually doing something wrong. And I feel like that's something that maybe, and no disrespect to those band directors that came before us that were that type of band director, because I think that's almost kind of how it had to be, with the advent of so many pieces of technology that help us make things happen quicker, or maybe automate some things or get things rolling, a little bit easier.
And I think the other thing, to ask you this question, would your program be where it is today without you doing those things previously?
Meaning doing
the quality that it is, like you were a guy. Here's your car that was the last one on the lot,
right? Oh, yeah, I'm with you. No,
I mean, is it a dues paying thing? Is it or can people maybe even start the first parts of their career and try to be a 8 to 3 or 9 to 5 or whatever it might be?
That's a really good question. I don't know if you can. I think you have to. I think you might have to pay your dues a little bit and just get yourself where you feel like you got everything taken care of, or like it's got a way of happening, right? So for instance, when I left doing the jazz band, the kids still knew to come in and set up and get ready to go the right way and make the room all happen, and it wasn't like that whole program just shut down, because it's something that I kind of put in place, the way that we do it. And so they would come in and they would start rehearsal just like we would have, but there just happened to be somebody else in front of them. So I felt comfortable going home knowing that rehearsal was going fine.
Sure. Sure.
And then, redesigning a marching band schedule a little bit just to be more okay. Not staying through all the time between marching band and the end of school. I live about 10 minutes away from school. So, yeah, that bell rings at 3. The kids might be having some sectionals here or there, and we'll have some staffing to take a look at that. But I might go home for dinner. Mm-hmm. See the kids, make sure everything's all okay there. Tiffany also brings the kids out to marching band practice in the fall, and they kind of hang out on the track. And so, and there's a lot of comfort there. The kids in the marching band enjoy seeing my children. Yeah. I like being.
How old are your kids now?
Oh, they are 8. That's Nora. William's going to be 6 here in about 2 weeks, and then Annie is 3.
Holy cow!
So yeah, it's been quick. I know you have a wide.
We have 15.
Yeah, there's a crew.
17 kids at home.
Yeah. I mean, and at least you can go places and you can leave one there and you'll be okay,
Yeah. 3 kids. You probably walk into restaurants too and people look.
Yeah.
You get that?
Maybe.
They seat us. They seat us by the boiler.
Yeah. Yeah. There have been a few times where we're just, they're just being kids, guys. It's fine. But yeah, we're not afraid. We go out and do our thing, and just whatever. People can look and do their thing.
Your kids play instruments yet?
Nora plays violin.
Okay.
William likes to play with his P-Buzz, which is that simpler version of the P-Bone.
Oh, okay. Because we needed something simpler.
Yeah, I tell you what. And man, does he love that? It's so.
What is the P-Buzz?
So the P-Buzz is literally just it looks like a mouthpiece attached to a bell.
Okay.
And then it's got a little bit of it can extend a little bit. It's a horn. It's a horn. And it's in some programs, elementary programs, it's being used instead of recorders, which is kind of cool because then they just make a transition into band.
Sure.
It's interesting. So he likes playing with that. They all tinker away at the piano a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's slow going, but they're interested in music. They like it. They like coming to band concerts and things like that too. So.
Well, very cool. Very cool. Why don't we wrap this up here? I know you've been in music education for a bit. Maybe just the last couple of points here, maybe some current items about music ed that you should you think maybe we can address with a little more focus, kind of push music ed band programs forward a little bit or redirect them a bit, and maybe some future goals for you and Victor J. Andrew band program.
For sure. Well, I something I'm passionate about is competitive marching band, again because Andrew High School had that as part of its heritage. Sure. Very quick backstory on that. When Dan Romano took the job, he asked the administration, "What would you like me to do?" Like I think a smart band director should. What would you like this program to look like? And the principal at the time said, "I'd like a competitive marching band." And Dan had really no idea, freely admits I had no idea what that meant or how to do that. So he just kind of rolled up his sleeves and hopped to it. And then slowly but surely, they become a state finalist qualifying marching band, and the rest is history there. So that's been something that's ingrained in the fiber of Andrew High School's program. So I feel like I've learned a lot about that activity in the time. I've also learned a lot about how our program is a little bit unique in the term of its size. We're a little bit smaller of a marching band or band program in the context of a big school.
What's the school size?
We're about 2,200.
And what's the band size?
And we're about 120, 130 or so total. So about 5% of the school population, give or take. My ultimate goal is 10%. I haven't quite been able to crack that.
That's us here. I mean, we're 125 in a school of 3,200. So,
there you go.
Up by 1,000 there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess that's interesting, right? I mean, in some places you have a school of 4,000 in a band program that's, 300, 400. Yeah. I mean, it's huge.
And across town, Joliet West,
right,
3,200 kids, and I think over 200,
right,
in the band there,
right. So very healthy in that respect. So I think but even if in the 3 schools we just mentioned, and I know your school is in a competitive marching band, but we just suggested 3 very different size schools with 3 very different size band programs. Yeah. So I'm interested in seeing the activity of marching band, competitive marching band, become a little bit more consistent in how we pit or combine groups against one another in terms of competition. It's really the only thing we still compete with in the band world. And again, I like the educational aspect of marching band as much as we possibly can make it. So our invitational, for instance, we have an additional judge that's non-scored, and they just talk about your show.
Yeah.
We have a free percussion clinic that we do and all that stuff. So we think it's educational. We want to try to land home educational side of it as well, but still have a competitive piece to it. So I'm interested in seeing how we can get more like similar bands with similar ideologies and similar shows, things like that, be competing against one another. And I think it's really exhibited in the sense that, you know, in the majority of the season locally up here, we have band size competition. And then when we get to our state competition, it's by school size. So this year, we were very fortunate. We had a great run at ISU, but we were in 5th place overall. And that's the highest we've been in over a decade. And it was a great time, great weekend for us. But we were the 2nd smallest band in finals. Going up against some powerhouses. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you those judges, you know, were good. They got it right. They were able to objectively look at the groups they had in front of them, but sometimes it's not always the case.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in seeing how that can become more consistent, and I'm working towards seeing if there's anything I can do to help that. I know it's a big animal to tackle, but I think that's something to be looked at. You know, and then just figuring out a way to make this activity a little less expensive to do for people. And I don't know what the answer for that is.
Well, and that's again, when people bring up marching band, we don't compete.
Right.
We're a high needs, low income school.
Right.
And you know, it's a money thing. It's a money thing. It's a transportation thing. So that's something I always look at. It would be nice, but you know, if you're going to spend the money, private lessons, other things like
to
that.
get it all done the right way.
Whoever's listening, putting an all call out there for if you take on that part of marching band, I'm sure somebody else could help drive the train for, you know,
for the funding side of things, maybe. So and then at Andrew, I'm just gonna, I like to take it year by year and see how things go. I as I mentioned, the national festival, the National Conference Festival, that is all about kids, and I you know, I know Scott Casagrande told me that first. And I believed him when he said that, because he said it. He looked me right in the eye when he said it, and that Midwest is kind of more about directors who go, you know, and I think the Midwest Clinic would be a really great place to, you know, kind of say, hey, I conducted there, but that doesn't. I really don't need that, you know, and I think, you know, maybe taking the kids to New York and playing at Carnegie Hall or Lincoln Center, kind of like what you guys are looking to do. And I think that's a really great experience for students. But just providing those quality performances and those things that they're going to remember. The recording is the trophy. You know, they can take that with them and say, I was in that. I played that piece. I did that. That was something that me and my friends accomplished together. So those, I can't tell you I have any, you know, major aspirations other than just making sure that I maintain a balance, so that the program feels right, and that the kids still have an opportunity to play some of the very best music at a very high level in every activity that they participate in, you know, whether that be the marching band, our jazz program, our concert program, or indoor groups. And if that's happening, then I'm happy. I can go home and feel like we're doing good things, and the kids have a place to call home. So, and I know it's off topic, but the last thing I wanted to mention is I think it's important to have a friend to talk to in this profession, and to go out and have a beer with and just talk through some stuff. And it doesn't have to be anything specific. Yeah. But you know, I've got a really good friend. He teaches at TF South. You know, just some similar interests. John Haney is a great guy, and we just talk a lot about band. And it's just a guy that we can talk through stuff with, and it just takes off that stress of everything that's going on. And it's kind of like, oh wait, we're both experiencing the same things. Good to know.
It's funny you say that too, because I think the English teachers and math teachers would say, well, talk to your colleague. You are your own colleague.
There's no more of me in the building,
school, right? You know, so it is as common as it sounds. I guess it's like we really do have to seek out, you know, the extra time to do that.
Yes. And that's important. I think if you do that and you have that person that can be your sounding board, even though I know that my wife Tiffany is that sounding board, but I also. And she knows this because I've talked to her about it. I don't want to burden her with my work stuff. You know, I think it's important to separate that out. I want to come home and I want to be there for them and just be be a dad and be a husband, and not talk about band and be, all that stuff. So it doesn't mean it's completely, out of the house. We that's how we met. It's how we fell in love and became, husband and wife, is through meeting in bands. So there's a lot we owe to it. But at the same time, I think that's something to think about.
Absolutely. Mark, thanks for coming out.
Thanks for having me.
This was fun.
Yeah, as always.
Fun. Hope people learned something here, and I know everyone will enjoy hearing you talk here. Thanks, bud.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.